Back here on Titans Talk, a day after the Titans lose to the Giants 21-20 at Nissan Stadium, a devastating loss in the first week of the season. It's just one that was hard to wrap your head around. Derrick Henry was solid, not spectacular in his return, but completely outplayed by Saquon Barkley on the other side. Ryan Tannehill, I thought, was good, yet the numbers weren't fantastic. A lot of drops from some wide receivers, yet you had some rookies step up. Kyle Phillips, Treylon Burks both look good. Austin Hooper didn't get a catch until the final minute. Robert Woods got one in the first minute, at least that the Titans had possession of the ball, but never got it again the rest of the day. It was hard to figure out. Titans offensive line didn't give up a sack the entire game. They protected Ryan Tannehill well, so kudos to them for that. But they also had multiple penalties and didn't completely open up the run game that failed to rush for 100 yards overall. Defensively, good start in the first half. Tons of sacks for the day. You love to see that pass rush, especially in the absence of Harold Landry. But they give up big plays. Gave up big plays. Struggled to convert in the red zone and finish. There were a lot of things to correct. I think much of it is correctable as you go back to practice. And that's the thing that you think about whenever you see a loss, is how much of this is we got beat and how much of this is things that we can get better at. I think the Titans can get a lot better from what they did yesterday. And they absolutely have to. There's no question about that. Our phone lines are still open, 737-7767, if you'd like to get in on the discussion tonight. But right now, we take you into our instant analysis from last night on the Electric Power Company's Sunday Sports Central with Keith Bullock, Mr. Monday Night. We'll hear from him on a Monday night now. Former Titans linebacker breaking down the action from the player's perspective. And, of course, our Titans insider, Jonathan Hutton from Outkick 360, joining John Burton and myself last night after a Titans loss. So the Titans end last season with a walk-off kick by the Bengals into the north end zone at Nissan Stadium. They begin this season with a missed field goal to the north end by Randy Bullock, not Keith, to lose a brutal game in which they were up 13-0 at the half. Guys, what went wrong in the second half?
Well, I think in the second half, the Giants were able to get some confidence in playing. You know, their game plan, they saw they weren't going to be able to pass the ball, so they stuck with the run. And Saquon Barkley was able to get out there in 8 yards on the ground. The defense wasn't able to stop the run, gave the Giants an opportunity and belief that they can play, and they hung around to the end.
And I felt like the team that played most like the Titans brand of football was New York and not Tennessee, unfortunately. Their best player came to play out of the backfield. They didn't make crucial turnovers after big gains. That happened for the Titans. And they were clutch when it mattered late in the fourth quarter.
Now, Brian Daboll said after the game, you have to coach with no fear of consequences, and he certainly did with that two-point call at the end of the game. Keith, what do you make of that call and the actual play?
Yeah, I love it. You know, like you just said, he's a first-year head coach. He's going to get out there, and he came all the way out here, and he has a chance to win. You put the ball in the hands of your best player, Saquon Barkley. He's been getting it done all day, and great call by the coach.
Great call. Dylan Cole had the chance to bring him down and could not. And Jonathan, the Titans were 6-2 in those one-score games a year ago when they won the division title. It's only week one, but how costly could this one-score loss be down the road?
It could be. I mean, they lost week one last year and still claimed the top playoff spot. You mentioned that earlier. And the other silver lining with this is no other team in the AFC South won this weekend. But that only matters if you go and win next week in Buffalo and avoid the 0-2 start. 0-2 in the NFL, generally, there are disastrous consequences there.
Yeah, long ways to go, but a very disappointing start to 2022. Historically, there's like an 11% or 12% chance that you make the playoffs when you start 0-2. Now, granted, there's 17 games now in the NFL. Makes the season a little bit longer, a little bit more time to catch up. And most importantly for the Titans, as Jonathan just alluded to there, this is not a very good division. And so while it might put you behind the 8 ball in the conference as a whole, there's a decent shot if you're 0-2 this weekend, you may still be technically tied at the top of the division because nobody else is any good. So the Titans have a little bit more breathing room because of the division they're in, but you don't want to build too big of a hole. We saw that last year with the Colts getting way behind the 8-ball early on the season. They had to battle and battle and battle to put themselves in a position late in the year, and ultimately they did not get in the playoffs because of that. So Titans need to bounce back in a hurry. We go back to the phones now. Say hello to Wayne. Wayne, good evening and welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for taking the call. I know one of your co-hosts. I know he's from New York, and I know he was happy. John was. He was happy that the New York came down there and turned the Titans and grabbed them by the tail and then turned them loose. But what I wanted to really say is, you know, my family is Titans, in-laws and all that. They love me. But the Titans are disappointment right here in the city. They're losing right here at home. And they started being conservative. They started calling some plays that nobody understood, just that they knew wasn't going to work. And they had the upper hand. And they just started being conservative. And if you do that in the playoffs, you might as well not go to the playoffs. Because it's going to get worse. They're going to start clicking. These teams are going to start clicking. And next thing you know, they get more experience. They're going to be like a unit. You're going to have trouble. If you can't win the first 2 games, you got trouble. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Wayne. Look, I expect the Titans to turn it around and be very competitive this year within the division and certainly fighting for a playoff berth. But let's not talk about the playoffs right now because there was nothing about the second half of the game yesterday that looked like a playoff team. Nothing. They've got to play much better, and they've got to play a full 60 minutes, whether that be against Buffalo and whether it's good enough against Buffalo, I don't know. But they've got to start doing that consistently before we can think anything about this team getting to that level and worrying about how they're going to match up with people or what they're going to do there. The play call and the conservatism of Todd Downing is absolutely something that you can be critical about. I think the end around to Chigakonkwo on 3rd and inches or 3rd and 1 there late in the fourth quarter was absolutely abysmal when you have Derrick Henry in the backfield. I think the Wildcat was a little too cute early on. I thought they did something else in the first half that was cute in a situation down by the goal line that they ended up kicking a field goal. But if you were able to convert there, get another set of downs, maybe you get into the end zone, and maybe that lead is bigger than you thought it was at the time. I thought their short yardage play calling was mysterious at best yesterday. And that ultimately goes to the offensive coordinator, who is Todd Downing, who continues to be a subject of concern for Titans fans at the least, even if he's not a concern yet inside the building over there at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Here's the thing I'll say about Downing in his defense for yesterday, though, and not on those specific calls. I will criticize those. They weren't very good. But overall yesterday, I give him a lot of credit for the different looks he showed, a lot of motions in the first half. I thought the script was good. And there were a lot of questions. And I'll be real with you. I was at training camp essentially every day. So up until the last week, we've been able to see every practice that the Titans had, just like Todd Downing could. And I'll be honest, when I looked out there, Derrick Henry didn't essentially do anything. He was just working to be in shape and get ready for week number 1. But he wasn't going through the team stuff. They weren't risking him in that regard. So you just had an assumption that Henry would be good to go. But you didn't actually see it out there in a lot of situations. And then you look at all those wide receivers and tight ends. A lot of them are new faces within this offense and on this team. And I tell you what, I mean, there were days that Treylon Burks had good days. There were days Kyle Phillips had good days. There were days Robert Woods had good days. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has been fairly consistent for them. But Des Fitzpatrick had good days. Racey McMath had good days. Everybody had bright moments. There were also multiple days where they just kind of disappeared. And going into yesterday, I really wondered, what does this passing game look like? Who do they go to? Does Robert Woods catch the ball 8 times? Well, the answer to that was no. He got 1 early on and was never really a factor after that. Would Treylon Burks even be on the field as if he's an elite number one type receiver at this point of his career, given how tumultuous his offseason was. I'm not even close to calling him a number one receiver yet, but he was out there a bunch. He was open a bunch. He had 3 balls and had a huge yards per catch game. That's a positive sign. Kyle Phillips' game, 6 catches, 66 yards. A positive sign. But I give Downing the benefit of the doubt in this regard that to some degree, I think they were waiting to see who could make plays for them offensively going into the game yesterday. That's how new this offensive personnel is. I liked the game plan from the start. It is a shame they didn't get more points in the first half because it could have changed the game and they had the opportunities to do so. And I think in the second half, there was some reluctance in what they were trying to do. And they did get conservative, and it hurt them. And they deserve some criticism for that. But before I fully judge Todd Downing and whether he should be fired tomorrow, as some in the fan base will say, I think you've got to look at him now the next couple of weeks, next few weeks, against different teams, now that he's seen his team on the field. Can he get Derrick Henry going in a better way? Can the run game continue to mature? Can there be more from the tight ends in the passing game? Can he find more receivers to get involved? That's the job for Todd Downing now, and if he can do it well, that criticism should die down. If he does not, it's only going to get louder, and the Titans are going to eventually have to answer that question about what he is doing as offensive coordinator. Again, another positive yesterday that should be mentioned, Dontrell Hilliard out of the backfield as a pass catcher. 2 touchdowns yesterday. That was something that we did see a lot in the preseason and in training camp. They worked a lot on finding Hilliard out of the backfield, matched up against linebackers in advantageous scenarios. He's a really good route runner, and he can catch the football. And yesterday, you saw them take advantage of that on multiple occasions. He had 3 catches, including those 2 touchdowns. That is something that is going to be a part of this Titans offense moving forward. But they've got to find more things to give them some juice in that offense because they've got to be able to put up more than 20 points consistently, especially against a team like the Giants. Back to the phones we go. We'll say hello to James. James, what's going on tonight?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
All right, yeah, I was just, my comment is that I think the Titans should stick to fundamental football. I believe that the razzle-dazzle plays that they were doing, you only do those when you 30 points down in desperation, or in the last 2 minutes of the game where you have 30 points ahead. But somebody needs to tell the Titans that preseason is over, that any given Sunday, any professional football team can beat you. And when you start feeling cocky and stuff like that, and somebody, the other opposing team would say, hey, man, wait a minute. And that was, Shaquan Barkley, he said, wait a minute, man, and the whole game changed. So, and when you lose that discipline, that's what happens. You leave points on the gridiron instead of points on the scoreboard. I think one of the, if you look at like Tom Brady and stuff like that, he's not super strong or and all this other stuff, but he plays fundamental football. Coach Saban, he plays fundamental football. I don't care how much advantage that he has over the other team, that he just stick to the fundamentals. And when you start getting out of those fundamentals and start doing these razzle-dazzle plays, it's going to cost you. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, thank you, James. I think a couple of things stand out to me about what you watched yesterday with the Titans. Mike Vrabel used the word flat to describe their second half effort. I don't know how you can be flat first half, second half, or at any point during week 1 of the season. You have legitimately been waiting 8 months to have this opportunity and to get on the field and start a season and set the tone for what you want to do. There's no excuse for that. But it makes me wonder a little bit if this team has lost a little bit of swagger. One, in the way that they lost last season to end in the playoffs. And then two, some of the things that happened in the offseason. Whatever you think about the situation, A.J. Brown always carried himself with some swagger. Offense needs a play, I'm going to go make it. By gosh. Julio Jones did have a great year here last year, but there was a swagger and a respect that came from having Julio Jones on the field. Harold Landry defensively has a swagger in the way he plays. Having those guys off the field, how much does it hurt? How quickly does it take this team to get over them? We'll see. But I wonder if that played into it a little bit yesterday. You had a lot of young guys on that field trying to figure it out, and maybe they thought the game was won when they got up 13-0 at the half. Maybe they thought it was over, but it's not in the NFL. And things can change very, very quickly if you fail to do your job. And that's what you saw defensively yesterday, where a couple mistakes, a couple of missed assignments, and all of a sudden, a couple big plays have the Giants back into the football game. And to your point about those gadgety plays, the end around of the tight end, the wildcat, some of that, I think the most frustrating thing to me about that is, one, it felt like it was overthinking it, but two, the foundation of a Mike Vrabel team, since he has been here in Tennessee, has been to be a smash mouth type team, to control the trenches, win the line of scrimmage. That has been the hallmark of John Robinson's personnel since he's been here, and the Titans started winning games, and it has certainly been the calling card of Mike Vrabel's team since he has taken over. And the idea that they had multiple situations yesterday with a healthy Derrick Henry back, this isn't last year when he'd just gone down with an injury and you're like, oh man, can we get a 3rd and 1? And I know the offensive line is new, but at some point, those guys have to go figure it out. They've got to lead in the way that offensive lines here have led in the past and be able to knock the team back and get a yard when you need it. And we just didn't see that yesterday. Everything was cute. It was trying to get a yard cute. And when you're talking about the sport of football, you really shouldn't use the word cute. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to the line play. Can you win the battle at the line of scrimmage, offense or defense? If you can do that, you are going to have success. And yesterday, for whatever reason, the Titans seemed to shy away offensively in the second half from trying to win that battle. And if they do it a couple of times, it's probably a different outcome. If that wildcat play or a different play gets a first down there in the third quarter, Titans probably maybe have a drive going. Maybe they change the momentum. Maybe it's not 13-13 that quickly. Maybe they go score. Maybe it's a different story to the game. You get that one late, did you do the end around instead? Maybe the Giants never get the ball back. Or maybe you go tack on to a 7-point lead and put the game out of reach. Those are things that make a difference. A lot of different plays made it so it came down to the end yesterday and gave the Giants a chance. One or two of those plays could have helped the Titans put the game away, but they were not able to do it yesterday, and that is a major disappointment. We'll take a break. Much more on the way. You're watching Titans Talk.